All right, welcome back, everybody, to the What Worked for Me podcast. Today we have Drake, who has been able to lose about 60 pounds. He has a really good story. I'm excited to get into it. Drake, is there anything else you'd like to introduce yourself with?
I don't think so. Just a normal guy with two kids and a wife.
Awesome. So before you get too much into the weight loss side of things, I always like to start at the very beginning. So right before this, we had talked. You said you got up to about 290-ish pounds, almost 300. How did you find yourself there? Were you always a bigger kid growing up, or did you gain that weight later in life?
Yeah, I always felt like I was bigger. I never really, I don't know, until probably junior high, I didn't really start caring. Um, and I don't think that I was super overweight. I just was naturally big. My dad's a big guy. And so I kind of just thought that was how I was supposed to be. And then um, later on, I served a mission for my church. And then at one point I broke my foot playing soccer, and so I wasn't getting any physical activity, and then I just blew up. None of my pants were fitting, and started getting stretch marks, and that's when I kind of knew like it was getting out of control and it wasn't normal. That's not where I should be.
And that actually came from like an injury. So you were kind of a bigger guy, kind of had big genetics. You got injured, and when your
Then it got
mobility
worse.
went down, then you just went all the way up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sounds like you probably gained at least the last portion of it pretty quickly if it was from the injury.
Probably gained about 50 pounds in the course of like 5 years,
Okay.
maybe to top it off.
And then is that when you kind of found yourself up at that top, like 290, 300-ish range?
Well, then I got married, and you always gain weight after you get married.
That can happen.
And then I just sustained my highest weight for probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years after I got married.
Yeah. So after those 4 or 5 years, what were some of the things that started getting you realizing like, okay, maybe I need to lose weight? Was it a like an aha moment? Was it a gradual thing?
It was pretty gradual. I couldn't find pants that fit anywhere that I went except for Costco. They have really, all their jeans are stretchy for some reason, which I like. I was able to
Yeah.
find jeans that fit, but like shirts, like I couldn't go to a normal store and buy like a shirt that's just hanging on the rack. I always had to go to like Ross or some crazy store that sold random shirts. So in that sense, it was kind of gradual. I didn't really have an aha moment until like months before I started actually working at it. If that makes sense. There were all these things that were just gradual up until the aha moment.
Yeah. So you had a bunch of like gradual things where it's just like those discomforts where kind of the
Mhm.
universe is letting you know like, hey, maybe you're getting too big when things stop fitting and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so you find yourself at about 290 pounds and you decide to start losing weight. What was your first steps to start that journey?
So the first steps uh, were actually my sister kind of put a challenge together between my siblings,
Okay.
and
It was just
it
a
was kind of like a
rivalry
little.
to help kick things off.
Yeah, yeah, and she does her own thing for training and stuff. She wanted to help us. Me and my brother, and I have another sister. We're all pretty bigger, I guess. I was definitely the biggest. So she wanted to help us get in shape. So she kind of orchestrated a competition between us. And at the end, my mom was going to pay the winner. Whoever was able to lose the most weight or complete the most workout, stuff like that. And I think it went for, I want to say it was a 3 or 4 month competition that she did between us. And so it kind of just fell into my lap, this opportunity that I had.
Okay. And so during that first 4 months, was it primarily just a nutritional shift or did you start exercising a lot more? What did you start doing different?
The biggest thing was the nutrition, because beforehand, I was going to the gym pretty consistently, like 3 times a week, which I look back now and for me that's not good. But I'd say I probably averaged 3 times a week, but I was only there for like maybe a half hour. I rarely did any type of cardio. So when I started actually focusing on things, I think the biggest thing that helped me was the nutrition side of it.
And what were the biggest changes you made to your nutrition?
I really just stuck with macros. I mean, you can calculate, based on how much weight you want to lose and stuff like that, by just focusing on macros, high protein, low fat, low carb, stuff like that. Try and limit your calories to a certain amount. So trying to just stick within all of the things that I had set for myself. That's when I started noticing a change because I was keeping track of every single thing that I was eating.
Okay. So you started out with just food diaries, macroing, and that
Hmm.
really started helping out that way. How
Yeah.
how much weight did you lose in that first 4 months with that competition?
Oh man, so I started the competition started mid-January of 2023, if I'm getting that right. And I think it ended around May, I want to say. And I had lost the majority of my weight within those few months. So I had probably lost at least 50 pounds within those few
Okay.
months,
So most of it was right during
right
the
at the beginning.
competition.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so something I'd love to dive into, because this is something that people can have problems with, is how are you able to keep going, right? And maintain after the competition. I think sometimes people
Mhm.
get really amped up for a competition like that and then it's over and they just find themselves going back to where they were at. So what were some of the key points that helped you keep going after the competition was done?
Uh, People complimenting me, like noticing a change, especially at work. Everyone knew me as a bigger guy. I think people noticing that and saying, "Hey, you're looking good. Like, how much weight have you lost?" I so the majority of that was probably fat loss, right? But I knew that I could improve in the gym, and so that was a big thing. Is that like, okay, I lost weight, but I want to like start building muscle now, and so that then the competition was over. It was no longer a thing between my siblings. We weren't like competing for anything, but for myself, was like, okay, I lost a whole bunch of this weight, but now I want to start to excel somewhere else.
Right. And so you just kind of replace that weight loss goal with another, a different health and fitness goal.
Yeah, kind of. I focused on lifting heavier stuff like that. I wanted to. I mean, I looked better, right? I had lost a whole bunch of weight, but I wanted to actually have a figure now because I had lost fat, but underneath that, it wasn't anything that was like chiseled or anything like that. So
Right.
I wanted that for myself so that I looked better without a shirt on or a shirt off, better without a
Oh.
shirt on. There we go. Yeah, that way. Yeah.
Okay. So your was your training, did it shift a lot after the competition or did you keep it similar? Because it sounds like you maybe lost another, 10, 15 pounds post
Mm-hmm.
competition.
Yeah, so the weight actually plateaued for 6 months. I actually didn't lose any more weight after that. But my pants kept getting bigger on me. And so I just continued counting my macros. It was a thing that I was used to, and it's the thing I didn't want to stop doing because I knew that was a slippery slope. If you stop doing it, then you're going to lose track, and then you think you're doing okay because you're counting it in your head, but then all of a sudden you're snacking here and there, and then it just gets out of hand. So I consistently kept tracking everything, and I ended up going to the gym um, for about the same amount. I was doing 5 days a week, and so I just kept at it. I because that was a good headspace for me. I was able to put headphones on, listen to all the music that I wanted to listen to. It was a good time to get away from the kids, my wife, the house. So it was a good balance of things for me to just keep the gym in my schedule, but then the food was just came natural. I just didn't stop doing it. It just felt normal to do that.
Just kind of kept going.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple things I want to dive into there. We're going to talk about the gym and what you were doing, but before that, how did you psychologically kind of handle the plateau? Because it sounds like you could recognize that maybe there you were still losing some fat, 'cause your pants were fitting better, but sometimes people have a hard time when like weight plateaus. How did you keep yourself motivated and continue to go when maybe like things felt like they were going slower than you could have wanted?
Yeah, I that's a good question because I think that was honestly the hardest part of this entire thing over the last 2 years was that plateau of not seeing any improvement. So I think the biggest thing was although my weight was plateauing, I noticed differences at the gym. Like I was able to do more hardcore cardio. I was lifting heavier weights, things like that. And over the first 4 months, I was so used to seeing the scale drop that when I hit that plateau, it started messing with me mentally. So I stopped weighing in every single day because I wasn't seeing those numbers drop like I was before. So it ended up being like maybe once every couple of weeks I'd weigh myself. I just hated not seeing a change. So I kind of changed that portion up, was, not letting the number on the scale get in my head. But seeing the improvement in the gym is probably what kept me going. I also noticed more energy at home, being able to play with the kids more, stuff like that. So the number messes with your head. And I just had to get that through my skull before I was able to realize that like the plateau that I'm at really doesn't matter. It's how I'm feeling and everything outside of that number.
Right. And then did you shift anything to break the plateau, like consciously, or did eventually things just,
Are you referring to like the additional 10, 15
yeah,
pounds?
because you said you dropped another like 10, 15 pounds.
Yeah, and I didn't drop that next 10, 15 pounds until um, probably a year later.
Okay, so it was
And
a
that's,
good amount of time that you were
yeah,
hanging.
so I plateaued for a while. I mean, I was still seeing improvement in the gym and my clothes kept fitting better and stuff like that. But when I lost the additional 10, 15 pounds, I dropped my macros, specifically my calories. My calories, my carbs, and my fat went down pretty heavily. The protein goal that I had set for myself shot up really high. So I think it was just a change that needed to happen that I kind of just put off for a while.
Okay.
And once I actually started focusing on that new number, all the new goals for my macros, I think that's what kind of gave me that additional 10, 15 pounds.
Okay. And so you dropped those last like 10 to 15 pounds. What made you call it there? That's something I think a lot of people on journeys have a hard time is knowing when to kind of get off the weight loss train.
Mhm.
So how did you know this is the weight I want to stay at? And you decide like I'm going to maintain from here on out.
Um, Honestly, I can't say for sure that I am done. I've always had this mental goal of 225 being my goal weight, and that's still 10 pounds away. Um, but I think I'm just more focused on just building bigger muscles. I don't know. That's a hard question to answer because I feel like I still have a goal there, but I'm pretty happy with where I'm at, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep. As I said, I think a lot of people kind of struggle knowing where
Yeah.
that end is.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, like as long I know that as long as I keep just doing what I've been doing, because it's basically how I live now. I don't even think about it. It's just I know eventually it'll get there if I don't know. It doesn't bug me anymore, if that makes sense. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. It's hard to say that it's actually ended my weight loss because I don't know. Especially because nowadays people are so focused on like, well, I'm gonna bulk or I'm gonna, you know what I mean? Like these seasonal things that people do, and
Yeah.
yeah, which I haven't focused on any of that. That's not really something I want to do, but that's just
Yeah.
something that I think that's like a fad that's been going around lately.
Yeah. Where kind of the intentional gaining and losing for
Mm,
the sake of body composition.
yeah.
You said something that I really, where you said this is just kind of part of my life now. And I think that's the key everyone needs to get to where they can maintain weight. How how are you able to do that where these new behaviors stopped being something you were trying to do and just started being something that is a part of your life?
Honestly, whenever I sit down to eat a meal, I am full. I'm sorry,
Motion detected
my
at the
Alexa's
front door.
going off. Let me see if I can turn this thing down.
Okay.
I don't know how I can turn that off because I'm using that for my speaker for you. Okay, well that might go off again. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Um, um, when I sit down and eat a meal, I cannot eat nearly as much as I used to, and so I think that me doing it for so long was just a resetting of my body. And if I try and like eat as much as I used to, there's no way that that's ever going to happen. And so it ends up stop being a mental thing, and it just is more of a bot. Like I feel full so much faster with so much little food, so much like a smaller amount of food that I think that's kind of how I feel like I'm living it is just because that's how my body is now. Like there's no way I'd be able to eat as much food as I used to.
That makes sense. And so it sounds like you even shift to a certain degree, kind of more into intuitive eating, where you just know, okay, I need to stop here. So when you have kind of your macro goals, but then you're also judging it based off of just how you're feeling while you're eating and those type of things as well. Is that part of the way that you maintain your weight?
Sorry, I think I lost some. I think it's the sound on you. 1 second.
Oh,
Oh, oh, I got you there. Sorry. Okay, can you say that last part again?
yeah, no worries. And I can just edit that out, so don't worry about it. I was saying you talked about macroing, and that was kind of the base of how you've lost the weight. But the last thing you were talking about was a lot more of like an intuitive strategy where you can just tell you're full sooner.
Mhm.
How have you branched over into doing more intuitive eating at this point where you can just kind of tell what your body needs, or are you still strictly macro based? Is it a mix of both?
I think it's a mix of both, and it depends on kind of where I'm at in the week. Sundays, I'll usually meal prep my Monday through Thursday for work,
Okay.
just because I leave like at 3 in the morning to go to work, and I don't get home till like 3. And so I've
Wow,
kind
that's
of got breakfast and lunch at work. So I meal prep for the week, and then on the weekends, like there's food at the house. While I'm at home, I kind of feel like I just eat what my body needs. But then during the week, when I meal prep, I prep for my macros, because being on the road and stuff for work is hard, right? You're sitting in your car, at least for my job, you hit all these little spots that have food, right? And so like if I can meal prep my working days, that makes it a lot easier for me. Then when I'm at home, I have everything, all the healthy food and stuff that I'd much rather eat anyway.
right.
I kind of eat what I just feel like my body needs when I'm at home. So it's just a mix of both, kind of just when I'm at home and when I'm at work.
That's great. You brought up work, and I always like to think about how these type of things. So let's start off with how has the weight loss affected what you do for work? Have you noticed any changes there? Does it make your job easier or harder?
Oh no, it's 10 times easier. And that was actually the main breaking point was I was on a call. Because I don't know if we said I'm a police officer. I guess I could have introduced myself better in the beginning.
It's okay. It's all good.
So yeah, I went to a call, and this was when I was my heaviest weight, and I was dealing with some like domestic incident at a Buffalo Wild Wings between a dad and a son, and they were arguing, and then the son just stops, and I'm trying to take control of the situation. The son stops and looks at me, and he calls me fat. I was like, oh man, that is not cool. It like really
Awful.
yeah. And so I think that was my main breaking point, because if I'm out here like representing the city that I work for, and like people can recognize under all this gear that I'm wearing that I'm like a fat person, then I probably should do something about it. So that was the main breaking point. Going back to noticing a difference, I mean, obviously being a police officer is a really physical job. I'm out walking around, driving around everywhere. Like I need to have the energy to do all of that for a 12-hour shift. And then, if somebody wants to run for me, I can keep up with them now, right? So everything that I've done has 100% benefited my job.
That's great. It's amazing how sometimes the worst critics can sometimes be the most honest ones that kind of give you that perspective that you need.
Yeah, totally. He said I had a bad barber too, so that kind of made it worse. I guess my hair looked bad that day. I don't know.
He just sounds like a terrible person, but
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't deal with the best people, so.
that's fair. So it's made work way better. You feel you have more energy and those type of things. You brought up the fact that you're on the road a lot. How have you navigated that? You brought up meal prepping. Is there any other ways that you've had to learn to try to be healthy while, one, working a really pretty crazy shift, and then two, just being in a place where maybe food availability isn't the best?
Mhm. I mean, it was difficult at first. I was by for When I first started, I was working a noon shift, so I'd start at 2 p.m., get off at 2 a.m., so I'd eat dinner at work.
Yeah.
And everyone that I work with always goes and buys fast food, and we all go sit down and eat somewhere. So that really was hard for me to change that, and it started with me meal prepping back then. Going somewhere where there was a microwave. Luckily, where we ate as a unit in that shift, there was a microwave, so I was able to figure it out. Now the guys that I eat with, I'm in a different unit. We go to a hospital nearby because they offer food for us at the cafeteria. So it's the same thing. They're ordering this grilled stuff, all these like fried chicken tenders, all this stuff every day. And I always bring in my lunchbox with a little thing and I go to the break room, warm it up. So that's for my lunch. And then, what I pack in my lunchbox is healthier snacks. Like protein bars. I get those like chicken breast, like pre-cooked chicken breast bites from Costco, stuff like that. So as long as I'm able to pack like healthier snacks that I can like reach in my back seat and eat while I'm in the car, that really like prevents me from going to the Maverick and grabbing like a bag of chips or, a thing of candy like I used to do.
That makes sense. Because I think that's one of the hardest things. Sometimes like food environment can just be
Yeah,
super.
and I mean, I go to a Maverick to go to the bathroom every hour or two, and I'm walking past all these chips and candy and stuff that I like to eat, right? So that's what makes it hard is I'm always going somewhere where there's food available. So I had to figure out a way to replace that, which was just packing my own snacks in my bag with my lunch. So
That makes
there's
sense.
kind of two things that I'm prepping for, I guess, not just my lunches, but also snacks.
Yeah, so maybe that's one of the big things too, is just make sure you have the snacks so you can actually, withstand that temptation of being around the candy aisle because that can
Yeah,
be
exactly.
difficult. So, you also brought up that you have a lot more energy with like your kids and stuff. Have you noticed any big changes around this like home life being lighter?
Yeah, I think so. One obviously is having the energy because I get up so early. Getting home, I used to just want to crash, but now I'm able to come home, help with chores, help get dinner ready, stuff like that. Um, but I think the biggest thing is just I'm wanting to set an example for my kids. I want them to see me going to the gym every day. My parents didn't do that. I didn't know that that was even really a thing until, I started going to high school or in college and these dudes are lifting weights and stuff every single day. Like I never saw that as like an everyday thing. So I think one being healthier in home is one thing, but then also setting the example to my kids.
Yeah. I think it's like passing down those habits to the next generation, I think is one of the most important things that we can do for our children's health. So, up to this point, we talked mostly about nutrition. You brought the fact that you lift or you at least do some type of exercise 5 days a week. What does your exercise look like that you've been able to maintain?
So I always start with my weightlifting, and that's just because of the time of the day that I go. If I go first thing in the morning, I'll do cardio first, so that I'm kind of doing a fasting cardio session.
Yeah.
But I've
Is this
lately
at
I've been going.
3 a.m. when you're waking up before work or?
No, so luckily for me, I can actually work out at work. They
Oh, that's
allow us to hit the gym there. We have a nice gym. So it just depends on the time of the year. It's a thing that I could explain, but people probably don't care about that. So if I'm going first thing in the morning, um, which I hit the gym at like 4, if when I get there, I'll do a fasted cardio for 15 to 20 minutes, which usually I just do an incline walk, like a 6.0 incline at 3 miles an hour. I'll do that for like 15 to 20 minutes. And then I transition to my weightlifting, um, which usually is anywhere from like an hour to an hour, 20 minutes max, I think. Sometimes it'll be a little bit shorter. But in between, I make sure that I just eat some quick carbs to fuel my weightlifting.
yeah.
Um, the other time of the year is if usually it's after lunch, I've already got carbs that I need for energy. I'll do my weightlifting first, and then I'll do my 15 to 20 minutes of cardio last.
And you're
So
always sounds like you're doing just steady state kind of incline cardio.
yeah, that's what I've been doing for my cardio for the past two. I mean, that's what I did from the very start was incline walking.
Yeah. I
So
think it's great. It's one of my favorite things to do as well. What does your lifting look like? You lift 5 days a week? Do you have it split up by body part, or are you just kind of doing whole body every day?
yeah, so I usually have 2 leg days a week, and they're usually like the second and the last day of my cycle.
Okay.
And then in between, I've got a day that I'll focus on just certain splits. I mean, it's changed over the past, year and a half or whatever. It's been 2.5 years. Chest, usually, if I'm doing chest, takes up the majority of the workouts, and then I'll throw in some triceps or biceps one day, and then I'll move to doing like a full day of shoulders. Um, and then I'll kind of do like a combination of those two for my third non-leg days, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And then I kind of sprinkle in abs almost every day. Do a little bit of ab workouts, just one or two movements.
And that's been what you've been doing. That's what you've filled in
Mhm.
with that. Has there during this time period, has there been any injuries or anything you've had to overcome? Sometimes that can really derail some people. Or
Um, I think back when I was doing flat bench, flat barbell benching, I don't do that anymore. But that was one thing that I started 2.5 years ago. I think I did, it wasn't like a severe injury, but you get that shoulder pain. I feel like flat benching almost can be like an ego thing. You want to see how much you can lift. And I think when you kind of do a little bit too much, um, for me at least, my left shoulder would just hurt all the time. And so then I'd have to give a break to my chest and my shoulders for I don't know, like a week or so. I've since changed that. I haven't done flat bench in a while, and I haven't noticed that I've gotten that pain. But other than like that, I haven't had any specific injuries that have put me out of the game or anything like that.
and then all you did was you just kind of addressed it. Hey, it was this exercise that was irritating it, and you just
Yeah.
set out. You
Hmm.
brought joint pain, which I think is something a lot of bigger people face. Did you have any joint pain when you started out, and did it get better? Or
I mean, my knees would hurt every once in a while, but I kind of contribute the 40 pounds of gear that I carry every day to that as well.
right,
Um, my knees definitely don't hurt as much as they used to. I mean, that 40 pounds is what I used to weigh with 20 pounds missing still, right? Like I still weigh less than I did without my gear, as I do now with my gear. So it's kind of weird to think about, but I've
how does
noticed that,
that feel when you put that on and you realize, like, man, I used to be this much and bigger?
yeah, it's kind of just disgusting. I think about it. I can't even imagine having all of that weight on me plus another 20 pounds.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. It's hard to comprehend.
yeah, I've actually heard people doing that kind of exercise, right, where you pick up how much weight you've lost to
Hmm.
realize how much
Yeah,
smaller
I
you.
would not. And to think like at my heaviest, I even had to still carry that 40 pounds, 40, 50 pounds a year.
Right,
So
walking around north of 300 for most of the day because
yeah,
you have all that gear on you.
yeah.
One of the other big things I always like to talk with people about is I know sleep can be super critical for health, and it sounds like you actually have a job where that can kind of interfere with
Hmm.
sleep patterns. What have you done during this to, get the best quality sleep that you can get? And then has your sleep gotten better since you've lost weight?
I will 100% admit that I get the worst sleep ever still.
Well, I guess that's
It's probably my job. The weekends I sleep great, right? I think I do sleep better now. My wife said that I used to snore a lot. Like I probably had some sleep apnea going on. I don't know. I never got diagnosed or anything, but
right.
I don't snore. At least she doesn't tell me that I snore. She still snores. Uh, I don't think that I'm bugging her as much at night. So I know that for sure. But like I still run off of like 5, 6 hours of sleep max during the week. On the weekends I get great sleep. But one thing that I started doing a while back was taking magnesium, and I feel like that helped me out a lot, especially now that I'm waking up so much earlier.
Right.
Um, so I don't know, just magnesium. That's just whatever you can take it. You don't have to. I thought I'd try it out, and I feel like it helped me. So
Awesome. And so it sounds like sleep's probably gotten, if anything, a little bit better, and then the supplements have
yeah,
also
yeah.
helped out a lot as well. Um, One of the things I like to ask everybody towards kind of the end of the podcast, we'll get things wrapped up pretty soon. But looking back, what do you think were some of your biggest mistakes that if you could restart, you'd probably avoid?
Oh, biggest mistakes. Um, I think if I would have pushed myself harder as far as lowering my macros more aggressively, I think I could have gotten to where I'm at now a lot quicker. Um, I mean, I'm not mad about it. I'm happy with where I'm at, right? But like, I don't know. I definitely can admit that I would let loose on macros on the weekend for sure. Which I know if I stayed,
We're just saying you were eat kind of whatever you wanted on the weekend and then eat.
wouldn't really eat whatever I wanted, but I wasn't as strict. I mean, I really only have healthy snacks at home anyway, but
Yeah.
I mean, still overeat on healthy snacks and it can still have a negative impact. But being at work, it just makes it so much easier to stay consistent. When I got home, I just wasn't as consistent. I wasn't unhealthy or anything, but I
Yeah.
know that if I was as aggressive at home as I was at work, that also could have accelerated it a little bit.
What were some of the things that you started to implement to get over that? A lot of people struggle with that, like Monday through Friday, they do great, and then Saturday, Sunday, they kind of backtrack. How are you able to get out of those habits?
Um, One thing was helping my wife get into figuring out her macros as well. Um, we went on a cruise last year with my family, and so we kind of had a goal of what we wanted to look like or reach before that cruise. And so, being more consistent at home was kind of brought on by helping her figure hers out. So we're working kind of as a team, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Finding somebody that can hold you accountable rather than just yourself. And we're actually getting ready to go on a cruise again this year in a few months. So it's kind of the same thing now. Um, just trying to hold her accountable for her stuff and her with me. So, pushing her to we go to different gyms, but pushing her to go to her gym and she's setting aside a time when I'm at home, not at work, to be able to go to the gym here. So honestly, I think just having someone that can hold you accountable
that was
was
actually one of the
that's
things that helped the most. That makes a lot of sense, especially if that's the person you're probably around the most on the weekends, if you guys can get on the same page.
yeah.
So one of the other things I think super important, weight regain is a huge problem for a lot of people, and you've been able to maintain really well for a couple years now, it seems like.
Mhm.
Looking forward, what are your plans to make sure you don't regain the weight?
Um, I always think about clothes. Like if I put on a pair of pants and they start to feel smaller, then I know exactly what I need to start doing again to feel better in those pants. Like that sounds so silly, but like clothes has been the best way to measure my progress through this whole thing. So having the knowledge that I do now of what I need to do to lose weight or get more fit or whatever, um, it's a lot easier for me to be like, okay, I recognize that these pants are getting smaller on me. I need to start to get back on track and do what I was doing a few months ago and lose a couple pounds or whatever it may be so that I can feel good in these pants again. Like clothes literally the biggest thing for me because clothes didn't fit me back then and I couldn't find them and now like I can go anywhere and find clothes that fit me. So I don't want to be in that situation where like I'm wearing the same clothes every day because I have hardly any clothes that fit me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's probably a bad answer to that question, but like
No, I think it's great. Honestly, that
that's
just
how.
anything that's can be a kind of that that honest feedback cue that you need, that can be a really good way of measuring it.
Mhm.
So, and some of that is you kind of brought up. So you said, okay, like your pants are fitting tighter. You think I need to get back into it. What are the things that you kind of constantly commonly find yourself kind of slipping on that then you have to be like, okay, I got to get back. And like, what does that process actually look like?
Um, well, I always look at Monday as like the fresh start. So just on that Sunday, just make sure I start meal prepping for that week and start the biggest. So tracking your food, people can do it however they want, right? I've used the Fitness Pal app or whatever. Um, Being able to track my food and enter my macros before I actually eat them is a lot easier than me tracking them while I eat them because you don't know it. So I'm trying to lay this out so it's easy to understand. But if you're tracking your food before you eat it, then you know where you're going to be at a certain time of day, so you know what you can have later on in the day. If you're tracking it while you're eating it, you're not as planned out, and you don't know. Oh, it's so hard to explain.
I think I get
If
what
it
you're saying
makes
though.
sense, like if you're tracking while you're eating it, you're not setting aside a certain amount of calories for yourself later in the day for dinner. But if you're tracking everything like the night before, you know exactly what you're going to be at a certain time during the day. Then you know exactly what you're going to have for later that day, so you can plan what you're going to eat for dinner the day before.
Yeah.
So, so if I'm feeling like I just had a terrible 2 weeks, whatever, then that Monday or Sunday, I'm going to get everything I need to meal prep for the entire week. And I'm going to pre-track everything so that I enter in Monday, a fresh start, everything's going good. And as long as like I'm consistent on that Monday and I get back in that role, then I last the entire week.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So yeah, Mondays are always like, okay, I'm starting good. Well, I mean, really, it's Sunday. I have to get into the mood on Sunday, right, to meal prep everything. And then Monday's like, okay, we're starting again. I'm going to keep going until I feel good again.
Yeah. And so really it's just it sounds like your biggest habit that you really kind of live and die by is just planning it. If you plan and you prepare, then things typically go well for you, is what it sounds like.
Yes. Yeah, I'm a big planner, and I'm very precise with planning things out and punctual and all of that stuff. So I think that for me, that's the biggest thing is just laying it all out, planning it out, and just executing the plan.
Perfect. Well, man, I think we're gonna wrap it up after one more question. Something I'd like to end on with asking people is if if you could just give like one piece of advice, right? You've lost 60 pounds, you've been successful, you've maintained it. What would that one piece of advice be to maybe a stranger who was just at the beginning of their journey?
Nutrition is going to have the biggest impact on the entire process.
So just kind of focus on nutrition, get that under control, and everything
I
else
mean,
takes care of itself.
stay active, right? But like I said before, I was hitting the gym consistently 2 or 3 years before I even started, and I didn't see any change. But the moment I focused on my nutrition is when I started to notice all the changes. My weight dropped. I started lifting heavier, doing more at the gym. It wasn't just the repetitions of going to the gym that got me more or got me to progress in the gym. It was actually changing my nutrition, focusing on that. And then it was kind of a reaction to how I was doing at the gym.
That makes sense. So, well, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think that's all I had wanted to cover. Is there anything else you'd like to cover before we wrap up?
I don't think so.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think you covered pretty much everything. A lot of things I hadn't thought about in a long time for sure.
Well, good. So, well, thank you so much, and thank you to all of our listeners. I hope you take the time to like and subscribe to the channel, and hopefully spread this message out so we can help everybody. Thanks again, Drake, for coming on the show, and we'll just end it there.
Yeah, thanks for having me.